Hi, everybody, and welcome to Devotions on this Monday. May this week be a wonderful one for you. May the Lord be with you. Do you remember that series called The Invisible Man that used to be on TV way back? Yes, I enjoyed that. There have also been a couple of movies about the Invisible Man. But there was a famous short story called The Invisible Man by G.K. Chesterton. And to give you a little piece of the story, what happened was there was this very short guy. He lived a few floors upstairs in a block of flats. And one of the people noticed he was missing. So they decided to go and get into his flat somehow, which they did. And they found on the carpet a pool of blood, but there was no sign of the short guy. So they called in Father Brown, who was G.K. Chesterton's kind of detective, And he looked and he said, did anybody see anyone go in and out at this time? And they said, no, we didn't see anybody. He said, well, there are footprints out there. So somebody went out, somebody came in. We know that. And then he thought, wait a minute, I think I know who committed the murder. And he said it was the postman. Because the postman is there every day. He goes up the stairs, he comes down the stairs, he delivers the mail, etc., etc. And you just get used to him being there. And he's not even a person really anymore. And he went upstairs with his empty bag. And then he came down with the body in his bag, because this little guy was so small he could fit into his bag. And he said, I think that's what happened. And Father Brown was right. Jesus also told the story of an invisible man. And we read about it in Luke's Gospel, chapter 16. This is how it goes. I'll read part of it. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen, and he lived in luxury every day. And at his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. Well, the time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abram's side. And then the rich man also died and was buried. In hell, where he was in torment, he looked up and saw Abram far away with Lazarus by his side. So he called to him and said, Father Abraham, have pity on me and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in the water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony in this fire. You see, Lazarus had become an invisible man. Every day he came home, there was Lazarus. Every day he went out, the rich man had Lazarus at his gate, day after day after day, until eventually Lazarus was just part of the scenario. And he wasn't even noticed as a real person. But he had to give account in the end, did the rich man, for how he had treated the man at his gate. When you look at the ministry of Jesus, you see how he paid attention to invisible people. We think of the blind beggar on the side of the road. People have become so used to him being there. He was just also part of the furniture. But Jesus said, come. And he asked him, what do you want me to do for you? And he said, I want to see. And Jesus healed him. Jesus is walking into Jericho, and he notices Zacchaeus up the tree. And he sees there a real need, and he calls him down. We think of when he went to that graveyard where the demon-possessed man was, closed out of society. Jesus came and he healed him, cast out the demons, so that he was then clothed and in his right mind again. You think of the lepers that were not allowed to come into the towns. But one day, Jesus encountered one of these men and he healed him of his leprosy. The Samaritan woman, she had to come in the middle of the day for some reason for her water. And there Jesus at the well began to speak to her and changed her life. And we could go on about those invisible people that Jesus encountered. And we as the followers of Jesus are called to see what is invisible. When you're talking on the telephone sometimes to someone that you don't know, maybe a business call or whatever, and because you can't see them, there's the danger that you could become quite impolite. But that's a person on the other end of the phone. We think of the cashiers at the till. When they are dealing with our goods and our money, are they having a good day, a bad day? And that's a real person there who could do with a smile and maybe a word of encouragement. You think of those who are at the traffic lights, who become invisible to us. That's a complicated one, I know, because they might not always be straightforward. But nevertheless, they are people with needs. We think of our families sometimes. We get so used to seeing each other that we don't really stop and look at each other and think how we're doing and ask, how are things? Are you okay? Etc. And so as we go into the days that lie ahead, let's be like Jesus. Let us see what is invisible. Pay attention to those around you. And may you have peace in your heart enough to be able to reach out and to share some kind of encouragement or blessing. So may God be with you as you go into this week. Bye for now.